Like the Eve August Fáilte. Hi, hello, it's John O'Sullivan from the Irish Pagan School, and I'm answering a quick question from one of my other video comments here on YouTube. So thank you very much for being with us. Really, really appreciate the connection we're getting, as I've said, with the videos and the people kind of coming back to us, letting us know how it's impacting with them. I've had some really lovely comments, some people who find my voice rather soothing, and when they're kind of just hitting a migraine day, they put it on the background. I had an amazing compliment in the past where a mother with a young child was turning up to a regular Live at 5 sessions, and then they couldn't turn up much anymore, and then they realized that their child's normal nap time about 5 o'clock was no longer working until they went into YouTube and played one of my videos, and the child went straight away. So I'm not boring, apparently, because that's what the brain gremlins tell me. It's just that I have a soothing voice, which I'm very grateful for. So yeah, whatever way you're enjoying our videos, we're really, really grateful for the connection that you're getting from this. And as I always say, if you have a question, if there's something that I say that kind of resonates with you and you really want to know more about it, then do pop it in the comments. So that's what I'm doing now, because if you recall in one of my previous videos, I was talking about the Dagda. I was talking about well, of course, I'm talking about the Dagda. I'm a Dagda guy. I work for that particular Irish deity. But I was talking about the Dagda's harp. And there's a segment in the lore where he goes to travel to recover his harp from Fomorian raiders. But instead of going with a war host, instead of going with like the whole force of arms that he could call upon, he just brings two people. He brings Lugh, the Eildonach and King of Ireland at that point, and his brother, Ogma. And Ogma is a lovely, fantastic character in the Irish lore, and there's so much about him, which is why I'm very grateful to have taught a class in the Irish Pagan School about him. But someone asked for a quick question, like, could you talk more about Ogma? And I'd be delighted to. So, yeah, Ogma is one of the very fascinating characters in the Irish Pagan School. No, in the Tuatha Danann pantheon, Tuatha Danann kind of gods of Ireland, that I have, again, done a class on in the Irish Pagan School. And it is because he fulfills a very specific role in a cultural context, in that he is a champion of the Tuatha Danann. Now, nowadays, like, do we have champions? Like, champions are people that we put gold medals on for sports accomplishments or for skill accomplishments in some way, shape, or form. So there's a different kind of requirement to be a champion in those days, where a champion was supposed to be the paragon, supposed to be like the representation of a Tuatha or a tribe in a number of different ways. And we find that when Lugh, for example, comes to Tara, he lists himself as a champion in the same way he would list himself as a brazier or a cook or a smith or a leech, which is a medic or a surgeon. He lists himself with all these skills. He lists himself as a champion. And at that point, he's told, I'm sorry, we don't need you, because we have Ogma inside. We have Ogma. And looking into Ogma, we can see why he is a champion. When Nuada eventually lets Lugh in, when Lugh does come in, and the first person he meets in challenge is Ogma. Ogma literally squares to him at the doorstep, was like, hey, you made it past the first trial. Now you face the champion. And what Ogma does is he picks up one of the big hearthstones, this big flagstone, and hoofs it out through the wall. It bursts the wall of Tara's banqueting hall and flies its way out into the dark, outside of the hill. And it's that challenge, it's that physical challenge of strength that Lugh must kind of face up to. So Lugh, being Lugh, goes out, picks up the stone, and instead of throwing it through a new hole, he throws it back through the same hole. But then he goes one step further and he takes up the broken pieces and fixes the wall. So in a way, he didn't beat Lugh by Ogma by strength, but Lugh showed his skill in being able to lift the stone and put it into the wall, because there was a hole there. But then he also went and fixed the wall as well. So it's a lovely kind of piece of the narrative, but it does show that physical strength, that physicality that we see with Ogma. One of the other things about it is that before Nuada gets the rulership back, and Lugh, when we kind of roll the clock back a little bit further, Bress, the Fomorian king, is ruling Purley in Ireland. And everyone knows that Dagda is put to dig the trenches of Rath's Bress, or to dig the trenches of Tara to bring them security. So he's kind of demeaned from this good, all-powerful god of druidry, magic, and everything into this role of ditch digging, which he's good for, and he does it. Because he is the kind of guy who will do what's needed to be done. but it's also not exactly representation of what he truly is or his status within the tribe. The same thing happens to Ogma. Ogma is placed to get the firewood for Ohm's or for Bress's Tara fires. And so there was said that the fires would be lit and they would be kept lit throughout the entire day, that the fires in the banqueting hall were not allowed to go down because the king would arise with the sun and he wouldn't go to sleep until after it set. And of course, you know, in wintertime in Ireland, that's only a couple of hours. Like it goes 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock of an evening, the sun's gone down. But during the summertime, sun is up by about 5 in the morning. It doesn't set till about 10 or 11 at night. So there is this kind of awareness that the king would always be like, if people are awake, if the sun is up, the king is sitting in tower, which meant there was always this constant need for firewood. And so every day, Ogma was set to get firewood. And so he would actually travel across Ireland and then swim out to a particular island, gather up the firewood, stack it all up, and then carry it on his back and swim back to then carry it. But it was said that the currents were so strong that 2/3 of everything he would gather would be washed away. And he would still come back. The only remaining third that he would be able to carry back was still enough to feed the fires in Tara. One other thing that we see around Bress is that, as I've mentioned before, he's not ruling from right relationship. He's favoring one half of his genealogy. He's not kind of embracing everyone together. He's not unifying his people. He's putting down the Tuatha Danann in favor of Fomorians. And so he replaces everyone of skill in any way he can in Tara, in this seat of rulership. So that when the other kind of chieftains come to him as the king in Ireland, they don't find any of their own people. They don't find any of their own, it says, their own poets, their own bards, their own performers, their own harpers, except Ogma. And this is a lovely thing about him, because as much as Bress is like 100%, I'm going to replace everybody of Tuatha Danann, in order to replace someone in the seat, you have to have someone else who's more skilled. As we've seen later on in the stories, when Luke comes, he's told, you know, I'm sorry, there's no chair for you because all the other chairs are filled. So in order to kind of get Ogma out of his seat as champion, there'd have to be someone else to take that seat. And no one could beat Ogma. So Ogma was the only person who couldn't be removed from Bress's court. And you might think, does that just make him he's just physically strong? He's this big ox of a person and it's only by strength and by bullying people or whatever. Not so, because Ogma is also a scholar. He is so intelligent. He is so kind of quick-witted with his tongue, with his ability to weave words and to shape language, that he actually just makes up a new language. And that's what we have, Ogham. The Ogham language was made by Ogma. And it says that the mother and father of Ogham were the hand and blade of Ogma. And so he actually just made it. It was his will, with this kind of forged intent to prove his own ability to create this written language of sound, these written language of shapes, in order to imbue sound within a physical form. Because if you remember, there wasn't a written language in Ireland. Everything was done by oral tradition. Everything was done by bards and the memory and the recitation, because that recitation was power. And so being able to kind of take that naming of things, the words, the power of things, and transfer that into a written form was a very big deed indeed. Big deed indeed. So Ogma did that. Now, he did it purely to prove he could. It actually says purely to prove his own excellence, his own ability. He then also went one step further and he said that this language would be held apart. It would be kept away from layperson. It was not for regular run-of-the-mill like documentation or everything. This was for the upper echelons, because Ireland, ancient Ireland, was a tiered society. You know, it wasn't an egalitarian utopia. There were kind of a caste or class system around. These were the farming castes. These were like the warrior groups. These were like the noble people, and they were broken down in nemeds. A great class in the Irish Pagan School for that is by Shane Broderick, who is one of our amazing teachers and a fantastic Irish folklorist. So he does talk about the structure of tribes and of kingship and such within Ireland. So there's a lot of classes by him. I would really recommend it. But it's these kind of different types of nemed that would actually, or subsections within the Tuatha, that would have access to certain ranks, certain kind of privileges, certain honor prices as well. And so when Ogma made this script, this language, he said it was only for the intelligent, not intelligent as in smart and not smart, as in those who are intellectually driven, those who are in this particular type of Nemid for like teaching, learning, brehons, druids, that kind of level of skill. So Ogma is an amazing, beautiful kind of character. He's a fantastic guy to get to know. I've had the pleasure of getting to know him in my own work. And yeah, he's just someone to really consider, because when everyone was ousted, only Ogma remained. And when everyone kind of faced a challenge, Ogma was there for it. It even said during the second battle of Mythology, Ogma took the field and he slayed one of the kings of the Fomorians in one-on-one personal combat, because that was his role. His role wasn't to just, scrap everyone who came along. His role as champion and recognized as champion was to find the other champions, was to find the other people of upper tiers, the kings, the champions, and face them down and put them to the test. And so there's a lovely kind of expression, lovely part in the story where he kills this Fomorian king called Tuatha, and he takes Tuatha's sword. And what he does is he cleans the sword. So after the battle, when the Morrigan is performing her poetry, when, Maka and Nuada are dead, when Lugh is still trying to settle himself after dealing with his grandfather, Ogma, having overcome heroes and champions and kings, sits down with Tuatha's sword and he cleans the sword. And it says that he sits with the sword across his knees, he cleans the sword, and when the sword was cleaned, it told upon him every deed done by its owner. So it's this amazing part where this relationship with the tools, the weapons of your craft, and how you imbue those, how you use those, they actually carry the story, they carry the understanding and the recognition of what you've done. So even though, it was his enemy, he defeated Tuatha, his enemy, he still cleaned the sword and listened to the tales of Tuatha. And so as an intellectual person, that really shows some of his characters, some of his insight. And as I mentioned, Ogma is a really brilliant character in all of the stories, as much as he is a brilliant and amazing god. Don't talk to him every day. He's a bit of a talker in my own experience. But if you need something big moved, not just physically, I'm not talking about, I'll ask him to lift the tree out of the garden, he'll do it. But it's those kind of big challenges that may need a different perspective, may need kind of a different kind of mindset to look at them, may need the balance of physical power and intellectual prowess. And you wouldn't be going far wrong seeking out Ogma for a conversation. So I hope that answers that question. Thank you very, very much for being part of our community. Thank you for being here within the Irish Pagan School. And as ever, keep the comments coming. I love to hear them. I love to actually read through them. And don't forget to do the like, to subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Because again, I might answer your question next. And if you're not notified, will you even know that you got your answer? So take care of yourself. All the best from us at the Irish Pagan School. And until next time, so long. Bye.